Welcome to the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast, your go-to place for approachable conversations around sacred sexuality and conscious relationships. I'm your host, Janine McKinnon, certified trauma-informed sex, love, and relationship coach who's on a mission to support 1 million women and couples to experience deeper connection and more expansive pleasure inside and outside the bedroom. This is the space to go deep, to dive below surface level relationships and mess sex and explore the sacredness that sexuality and conscious relationships have to offer. Because deep connection, spiritual sexuality, full body orgasms, and transmuted sexual energy are available to everyone. And I'm here to serve the collective, to provide the knowledge, wisdom, and tools to access them. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful we're able to connect in this way, and I can't wait to dig into the contents of this episode with you. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to another guest episode where we are actually welcoming back a guest who has been here before, Nicole Broadbent. She was on to talk about approachable spirituality, and she is not only an incredible human being, but she is a woman of many talents. Yosui, Holy Fire, and Karuna, Reiki Master Teacher, I hope I said that right, who weaves in mediumship and quantum work and just has this beautiful blend as a holistic practitioner. And I was actually able to taste her magic just the other week. Can't remember if it was last week or the week before. Times kind of blended, but it was an incredible session that was so deeply healing. And so I'm really excited to dive more into the potential of energy work and mediumship and inner child healing to really support us in standing into our authenticity and carrying that into our relationships as well. So we will be digging into all of that. Welcome back, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay, I'm excited to have you back. I feel like our last conversation just went so good, and it felt like we could have just a countless number of episodes talking on all of these different topics. And after being able to taste your magic, was it last week or was it the week before at time of recording this? Or who knows?
I think it was about 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah. And it was just so good. Like I had an online Reiki session before, which was good. Like I felt very relaxed and better after, but how you wove in the context of what you experienced happening while you were moving through things just brought it to this whole other level. And so I'm curious how you got to a point of coming into this work and having all of this Reiki practitioner training and then coming up with your own soul alchemy Reiki, where you weave in the mediumship and the other things. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I began my journey in a place where I wasn't well and the medical system wasn't reaching my needs. And I started to extend outwards, and someone said to me, and this was 17 years ago, have you heard of Reiki? And I'm like, no, what is it? Sure, I'll try it, anything at that stage. And I experienced my first session with an amazing woman named Linda, who I still am connected with deeply, and I call her my Reiki mama. She guided me in this deep awareness of that this was my purpose. In the very first session, she said, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And at the time I was in the process of reapplying for finishing my psychology degree. But I was already in the process of being a mother. And so I wasn't sure how I was going to weave the remainder of my education of psychology in with being a mother that I wanted to be full-time with. And she guided me to this place where I had this understanding that I can help people on a more intimate connection, whereas the original kind of guide that I was going with was going to be psychology. However, there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of disconnect where I'm I immediately see the light in you, right? And I immediately want you to see that light within you. And following the structure and the routine of psychology would not have been for me. However, I get to weave that in to my work as well. I progressed quite slowly. I did my level 1, and then a year later I did my level 2, and then I started my position at this amazing studio that was a Himalayan salt studio that had a floor of Himalayan salt and walls of Himalayan salt.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. The way my journey has gone, it was just like doors opening and opening and opening over and over again. When I took my level 2, that's when I really started to notice this, my gifts being activated on more of a profound stance, that I started to entrust in them. So when I had strangers coming to me for Reiki sessions, and I would be able to see and hear and feel my clairs, as they call it. So claircognizance, clairvoyance, clairsentience, all of those were expanding. And once I was able to share my experiences that I was having internally while facilitating this beautiful energy healing, I started to recognize that this is more than just my imagination. And then that guided me towards the direction of wanting to I'm very thorough with my teachings and my own experience and education. So then I went under training with an amazing medium, Erin Knight. And from there, it just continued to progress. My continued training, it was always like this feeling like there was something else I was waiting for. So I took my level 3. 3 years later, I took my level 3 again. There was something that wasn't quite satisfying me with the first time I took it. And then I took my master teacher, and then I did Karuna 1 and Karuna 2, and I was still waiting for something. And it was holy fire that ended up satisfying that thirst. And then with my own work and my own discoveries and entrusting in myself and in believing in myself through repeated affirmations. It took me a long time to catch on what gifts I have and how profoundly it can aid people. I started to develop my own system called Soul Alchemy Reiki.
It sounds like it was this really genuine journey that just kind of unfolded for you. As you said, doors just kept opening as you committed more and more to yourself, to this path. And it was like it unfolded these different types of modalities for you until you found the right one with Holy Fire. Could you share a little bit about what those different modalities are? Because when I had first heard and read your bio, I was like, that's a lot of words. I don't know what it is, but they're Reiki. Okay, cool. And then when we had our session, the way you explained it, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. So could you explain kind of what each of those are?
Absolutely. So they're all expressions of being able to facilitate the universal life force energy. And Yosui is the starting point, the grounding point, the beginnings of this it's an organization of the modality of healing. Ultimately, what I believe all of us have access to, but it creates this really intentional harnessing and compartmentalization of how to facilitate that on a healing way for an individual or yourself. So Yosui is like the backbone of Reiki, and it's a beautiful traditional expression that I teach and I love and I adore and I use every single session. Karuna is another modality, and so like when I'm expressing this is from my opinion and my experiences and how it nestles in my heart, but Karuna is incredibly gentle and compassionate, still extremely powerful, but it comes with this like beautiful way of navigating compassion in with the healing. There is multiple different symbols and expressions of empowerment and activating and etc. And then Holy Fire, to me, is a step up in the evolution of. So when I'm facilitating Reiki, it's like the way it seems to me is the universal life force energy comes through my crown chakra, wraps around my heart, and then comes out my hands into the individual. That's Yosui and Karuna is how I witness and experience that, and often how I teach it or open up to the concepts of teaching. And I always suggest that my students take what I offer and then make it their own, because that's where the most potency is going to lie. And then Holy Fire feels to me like it's a separate channel of energy purely from whatever you wish to call it, source, universe, the ultimate creator of your soul, Father Sky, however that resonates with you, drawing that energy down straight into the individual. And if I were to express it in the way of frequency, it feels like a very like high, pure pitch of frequency is what holy fire feels to me. But I feel like they all play a really important role in the flow of what I teach and how I am in service. And I love them all equally.
Mm-hmm. It's helpful, I find, to like have a bit of that visual with it and that distinguishment between the different modalities. Because my kind of initial learning of what Reiki is it's like, okay, working with energy healing. But to get that more of it with the Karuna and Yosui, with that love and compassion and kind of channeling through you versus kind of channeling directly, and that shift in that energy through doing that is, I find, really interesting. And then you had touched on working with, I believe it was Erin, I forget her last name, to explore more of the mediumship of it. And I would love to just learn more of that journey too, because I feel like, and this is something we touched on in our previous episode too, is so many of us have a witch wound and sisterhood wound and all of these different things where we hold ourselves back from really embracing our full self. And when it comes to these different intuitive hits and these different clairs and really stepping into our fullness and owning our different gifts, that's like incredibly scary a lot of the time, in being able to share that and that fear of what other people will think, and then especially taking it on as the work you do that you put out in this world that's on an even greater scale of just learning and having the interest in it. So what was that particular journey like for you?
Well, I would have to say that, I used to express myself before I began to own my gifts. I call it gifts now, but at the time, like a kid, a teenager, a young adult, I felt like a raw nerve ending walking around in this world, because I could feel everything. I could feel the energy of a room. I could feel the energy of a person. I could feel the energy of a plant. I would feel so much. And so that in itself is, I teach it as a superpower. It truly is navigating it and learning how to be able to shield yourself, which I call a spiritual hygiene, which is a major part of my course. So learning how to create a sovereign container where I still can be of witness to what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, but knowing that I am in my own container was a major part of the journey. So as a child, this wasn't communicated to me that other people could feel this. I always thought I had an overactive imagination, and so when I would see things, or my dreams, or when I would close my eyes and I'd visualize, or another thing I used to do is, as a teenager, I was, a traveling hippie. So I'd be like, had no money. I would go to a mall and just people watch, but I would like entertain myself by people in like a food court far, far away. And I would have a whole story, which was going on. And like, I started to share that with my husband, and he'd be like, "Okay, what's going on over there?" I'm like, "Oh, you wouldn't even believe it. This is what's going on." Right. And so once I started to experience these similar things in these Reiki sessions as a level 1 and 2, I started witnessing this expression of just lightly expressing out words about the potential of, I felt like you have a really beautiful, loving grandmother that is wanting you to know how amazing you are. And I would just start saying those kinds of things. And then I'd just be met with tears and emotion and like heart expanding, which I would be feeling, right? So I'd be feeling all of this energy coming from these individuals, where I began to understand that this is part of what I need to be doing. Not that I put myself out there in the way of a clear channel or a communicator. There's amazing humans that do that. And I simply offer it as an opportunity if it shows up. I always go with the flow with every single session. So if it shows up that way, but it was like repeated, like synchronicities or unexpected things that would be like, for example, I would pre-meditate, pre-set up my bed. And at the time, the place where I was working, I had a hostess that would bring the clients to me. And at the time, I didn't know who it was. They were just starting to come through the studio and my name was getting out and people were just signing up. And I set up the table to be like a really, like I was putting the pillows out and I realized that I set it up for like what looked like a child. And I was like, that's really weird. And then I was getting like really intimate downloads while I was doing that. And I was like getting a pre-story already surfacing in my head. This is back in level 2 times. And I was very aware of it. I'm like, whoa, that's a pretty potent story that just came through that I really have no idea. And then there was a knock at my door. And so the hostess brought the client and I look at the table. I'm like, I'm going to have to readjust that. Anyway, I opened the door and the woman was tiny, like really short. And so I, like my face and everything, I was like, holy shit, this is actual legit. Like I just set the table up, like this is happening. This is actually happening. Okay. So if divine source, universe, however you want to acknowledge it, if their guides showed me to set up the table in this very strange manner that I wouldn't normally do, and then this person is coming to me, that was communication that the actual story that I downloaded was truth. Mm-hmm. So then I started to acknowledge these little things and I started to pick up on it. And don't get me wrong, it took a long time. Even though I went under training, that concept that you expressed, the witch wound, I still navigate it. It's still deeply ingrained in our collective to not truly believe in ourselves and express ourselves in our truth. We're still, in my opinion, trained to be silenced, or at least we're navigating the wound of which our world had originally started expressing that out in our society. And now we're finally starting to come out of it. But I'm still navigating that. And it took a long time for me to truly believe in myself. Now I'll just be like, yep, that's what's up. And then my husband will be like, but how do you know? And I'm like, I don't know, but how can we deny it after everything that has repeatedly come through in our lives where I had that feeling or I had that inkling? And I feel like because I allowed myself to believe in myself, then that's why it got stronger and stronger. And I feel like that is the trick and the little expression of what is missing from somebody who wants to step further into their gifts is learning to believe in themselves. But it's like a muscle. You got to keep working in it. And the more you believe in it, the more you work it, the stronger it gets. And the stronger it gets, the stronger it shows you, what other opportunities there are. And then you want more and you get excited and you open up to more. Yeah.
I got like tingles, and then as you're just like finishing up, I'm like, yes. Because I really do believe, as you've shared with me before, that we all have these gifts. I think we come here to this earth with these gifts and they just get buried down and we become disconnected from them in other ways. And it just takes our acceptance of them and opening to them, and then learning to work that muscle to connect with them more and build that. And that's kind of a muscle that we get to work in so many different ways with our intuitive gifts, with simply using our voice and speaking up for ourselves and owning who we are and just connecting with our bodies. I find a lot of sexual healing work is very strongly correlated with intuitive work as well, because it's really about connecting with your body and then noticing the subtle changes, noticing the sensations, slowing down, opening yourself up so you hear these intuitive nudges or however it tends to come to you.
Do you desire to feel confident in your body and empowered in your sexuality?
The Honeypot meditation is a potent 12-minute visualization to support you in connecting with your sexuality and rewiring your subconscious with the confident, radiant energy you'd love to embody. Download completely free through the link in the show notes and get ready to immerse yourself in a visceral experience as you connect with your sensual, radiant essence. And I actually shared this on another recent podcast. I have a whole episode around it, but part of like my starting with my sexual healing journey, it's a butt plug, how a butt plug strengthened my intuition. And I got this crystal rose quartz butt plug. And when you get these things, like you got to clean them and everything to be able to use them. And I remember hearing in my program how you're supposed to boil your new pleasure tools to fully sanitize them. And so I've got like the water boiling and I put in an obsidian wand. And when I go to put this rose quartz butt plug in, I have like, I don't know if you should boil like this rose quartz. And I'm like, no, the program said, and I put it in and immediately crack. I'm like, fuck, I knew. And so like it's cracked. I'm not putting that up there and worried about it coming apart. Like that's just not going to happen. And I went back and I looked and the program actually said not for these crystal things. But for me, it's like this symbol of listening to those intuitive nudges. And I actually have it like planted in my plant right beside me as this reminder when I do my work and I spend a lot of time in this space is just listen to those intuitive nudges. And I think the more we not only listen to them, but recognize them, like you said, with your journey, like you're doing this full setup. And then, wow, she walks in the door. And so each time you're recognizing, yes, this is real, and believing in yourself. And then it becomes stronger and you build that relationship with it in this incredible way.
Absolutely. And you're manifesting the reality too. Mm-hmm. Like when you truly believe, then that is what you're manifesting. That's the reality you're creating. Mm-hmm. So when you start to believe in yourself, you start to create that expression of, I am intuitive. I am powerful. I do have the ability to heal myself. Mm-hmm. And that's part of my mission is to help people realize that they have the power to heal themselves.
I love that because I'm such a big manifestor. It's like, yes, we're creating a reality in what we want. And when you put it that way, when it comes to our intuitive gifts and believing in ourselves, like, yes, that is just the reality we live. That is what it is when we really put that belief behind it. Did you like, it sounds like you were fairly open and kind of like listening to those hits and being reaffirmed by it. Was there like stronger doubt or different people in your family or friends that were dismissive of it as you were getting more empowered in your gifts?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've always marched to the beat of my own drum. Mm-hmm. And I was blessed with scenarios in life that did not match my integrity. So I always felt like I needed to do me. Mm-hmm. And as I did, I rose out of, situations and environments and an expression of what a woman is supposed to be in this world. And I bucked it full throttle. Mm. And I just kept going for what I knew was happening, but it's not like it was just like, I was like done and I'm like marching forward. It's a lifetime, right? Mm-hmm. It's a lifetime of learning. Yeah. I think, yeah. I'm so grateful for everything that brought me here. And it definitely came with trials and tribulations and people be like, oh, Nicole, what are you doing now? You know what I mean? And I still have family members that are like, oh yeah, Nicole and her voodoo shit is an expression that I've heard far too many times. Mm-hmm. But I know that I have helped so many people and I know that I am on the path and purpose I'm supposed to be. And I stand in my integrity. And that is something that I've always said across the board. Even if it doesn't fit the scenario, I'm okay with that. And I guess that's part of the expression of falling in love with yourself. You end up knowing that this is true, and it's okay if people don't understand. Maybe one day they will. Maybe in another lifetime they will. And that's okay.
Yes. Oh, that really is what it's all about for me. Like, that's why you do the work you do, and that's why I do the work I do, is just so women can come home to themselves and have that full belief in who they are and in their gifts, and that it's okay. Life happens. People have judgments, different things go on, and we can be grounded and unshakable in our belief in ourselves, and that we can just handle and adapt what comes up, stay in our integrity, make those choices, and we're okay, but because we are okay and we believe in ourselves for who we are. And yes, like, people aren't going to understand, and that's okay. Maybe they'll come around, maybe they won't, but as long as we can stay true to ourselves, like, that's where life really blossoms. And you had touched on, when you first came into Reiki, you were dealing with some different health issues and things like that, and was like, I'll try anything at this point. I'm curious if you're open to sharing what has gone on with those now that you've gone through Reiki and learned how to heal yourself and have these gifts. What was the impact on your different health issues that you were dealing with?
Well, first of all, I was undiagnosed my whole life. And so I'm a celiac, I have Hashimoto's, but I was undiagnosed my whole life. And so I was actually in incredible pain my whole life. And there was never really an understanding of what that was. And I was misdiagnosed and misdiagnosed. They told me I wouldn't be able to have children naturally. I have 3.
Yeah.
And there was never a problem with moving forward in having a family, yet they told me I wouldn't be able to have him. It had nothing to do with the female reproductive system. It was celiac disease. But at the time, not too many people knew that. And it's similar to I guess it's similar to the expression of how you said that there was people don't get it. Well, this is where they are in their evolution. Now the medical world has figured it out, and now the medical world is evolving to acknowledge that, nutrition is a major component of our health. But at the time, there wasn't that support system or awareness or information even. So I took it into my own hands. With the respect of healing, I've been able to navigate it and be in total sovereignty with it. And I can be navigating my life and living in full health now because of the empowering changes that came with my own discovery of me as a sovereign being and a powerful being that can navigate anything I need to. And then, there was a time where I stopped weighing myself at 210 pounds, almost double what I am now, because of the misdiagnosis with the celiac disease in conjunction with the thyroid disease, and how there was like all these stories that were mixed and mingled in there. And I feel like where that shift came, what Reiki brought was a deep amount of healing that went through my mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being that eventuated into the manifestation of my physical health. And that's metaphysical anatomy. So when you start to consider that there is these attachments of your dis-ease of your mental, emotional, spiritual, it manifests into disease of your physical. You start to harness in your power to heal yourself. And so I went through a lot. I went through deep layers of healing, wounds of this life, wounds of past life, lineage wounds. And I'm grateful for it all. It brought me to the here and now. And the incredible aspect of it is becoming a cycle breaker of my lineage. I've been able to now pass that down to my children. I've gathered all these tools, all this information, and I'm able to pass this down to my children and other people's children and their teenagers and adults and everybody, to be able to help them and guide them in their empowerment.
It's so incredible, the work that you do, and it really comes down to that belief in yourself. and making those aligned choices. And now you're at the stage where you are as in tune with your gifts as you are. You've been able to heal yourself in the way you have and be able to teach people and guide people in so many different ways, and really creating that cycle change for you and your kids. And that's something that came through in our session that was like so deeply healing for me, is there was that inner child piece that came up, and being able to have clarity for something that I just don't remember at all, and that I've been having more and more of a desire to remember parts of my childhood. And so it was a gift that came up. And there was also a point where you said it was like me with my inner child, and I began to brush her hair, and how she was just like loving that love and attention of it and the pleasure of it. And for me, that was so healing in this full cycle side as well, because I remember where my mom was brushing my hair and she was so stressed out. Like, my parents got divorced when I was 7. She had lots on her plate as a single mom, so no shade to her. But I remember, like, we would get in fights over it. And she had put my hair up in a certain way that I told her it looked like a fountain of pee coming out of my head. And there's like this big fight over it. And I have seen myself repeating those patterns with my daughter. And when I would be brushing her hair, she would say it hurts or this or that. I'm like, long hair is painful sometimes. You just got to deal with it. And I'd just be like, we got to do this. You got long hair, learn to figure it out. And after that session, like, not only was it so healing for me, but it just completely changed my perspective of those moments with her. And it's every morning and every evening doing her hair. And when she's out, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Can I do this in a different way? And it's such a radical change from what is seemingly such a simple moment, and how that's changed it between us and moving forward, and just really coming from that place of love in so many different ways. And just the more we stack on these tiny moments of healing where different patterns come up in all of these different ways that are passed down to us, and when we can make those shifts one after another, that's how we really change the world, I think, in doing this in our families and then sharing this with other people.
Absolutely. It's like a story of compassion, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you end up having to navigate that compassion within before you can put it out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Once you realize that you're nurturing the inner child within you, then you recognize it as a reflection within your children. And then you start shifting the story there. But it's not just that, it's the compassion that can grow with a stranger who's flipping you off as you're driving, you know, that person's having a really bad day. That person also maybe wasn't navigated on how to address their anger, or they're being triggered somehow. They feel like I took their power away from them, you know, like that kind of thing. So then you start looking at life on more of a compassionate stance, but often it has to come with having compassion for self and how you're showing up and navigating your mistakes, and then being able to express it outwards.
It really does come down to ourselves. I fully believe that we can only love others as much as we love ourselves, and can have compassion for ourselves. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck is, and again, it's an inherited belief system often, where we're just so self-critical and we hold so much guilt for the things that we've done and think we should be in a different place, and all of these different stories. And I like to remind people, like, we can't hate ourselves to change. Like, if that were the case, life would be way different because so many people are so critical of themselves. And it's really when we can come down to that place of compassion and love for ourselves that we can begin to make those shifts, and that we can then share that how we look at other people, whether that's right within our relationships or out and about. I do find our family unit, and of course our partners and our kids, are such big mirrors for healing. And in a lot of ways, it can be easier to be compassionate for the random person flipping out on the checkout girl or someone cutting you off, compared to when we have these trigger points in our household. And it's those patterns that how we were treated often, and it just initially happens. And so being able to find that compassion and that shift in perspective really makes such a change. And I think relationships and family units are this beautiful opportunity for growth and development. And as we touched on in our session, it's really neat how often when we're raising kids of a certain age, we're being able to heal kind of that stage of ourselves. And with my kids being 5.5 and 7, and that was around the age of that inner child piece that came up in my session with you. And when we actually take the opportunity to do these things, we become more and more whole and more rooted in love, and get to make that shift with our kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Yeah, such beautiful work. And now I'm curious, because Vancouver Island Soul Summit is coming up. You are a co-facilitator. I can never think of quite the right word for what you are doing.
Yeah, we have co-created. It's like at the final stages of before it's actually happening, because it's coming up quick, with a beautiful sister, Michelle. And we have created this opportunity for, so similar to what we've been talking about like when people start to begin to understand this mindfulness, or looking upon these different modalities with curiosity, they need to feel safe, right? You need to feel safe before you grow. And that's part of my work, where when someone comes to me, I like to think that I create a safe container for them to be able to expand. And so, but not everyone feels safe going to a Reiki class, or going out into a yurt in the middle of the forest for a breath circle, or, like, and so where this sort of birth from was a place, well, and but we both have been dreaming this in for, like, my husband reminded me, for like decades of gathering these magical human beings that I'm blessed to have in my life, and then putting it out into the world in a way that people can come and just dip their toes in all the magical waters of Qigong, and talks of sacred sensuality, and Reiki, and breath work, and metaphysical anatomy. And it's just, the list goes on. And so we've created this beautiful opportunity for people to come to a conference style retreat. So it's, you come to the Prestige, and our oceanfront resort here in Souk, beautiful place. And it's a conference style that's going to have 2 rooms. We have the mind room and the body room. And we get to have an experience in the mind room, and then we shift over to the body room and have an experience where we're doing laughter yoga is one of them, which I can't wait to experience, and go back to the mind room. And we spend the days doing that. So it's Friday, our check-in, I think, starts at 4. Everything starts at 5:30, goes to around 9:30. And then Saturday is 8:30 to 9:30. Sunday is 8:30 in the morning to 5:30. So it's like jam-packed full of all these beautiful expressions of different ways for you to find that light within, for you to find that way to meet you, to start to fall in love with you. And it can be in the simplest form of, like, finding that joy in laughter yoga. Or it could be through this really powerful spiritual medium, Nicole Powell, and discover magic in there. We have this amazing woman, Lara, a galactic light channeler. So we got like some really intense stuff that might just end up being a beautiful flow. And then there's all the way to laughter yoga and Qigong. And so what we've done is we've created this like expression of even choose your own adventure. So you can come to some that resonate with you, or if some you want to try out, or you can have every single day, you can line up for them all. And we're really excited for this. And there's only 6 tickets left, which is super exciting. So, and that to me is indicative of the call. So people are starting to feel that call. They're starting to feel like they are ready to try something new. there's something missing in their worlds. They're curious about this. And it's a beautiful container for them to feel like they can just try it out, check it out, see if it aligns, see what shows up. And yeah, we're super pumped about it. It's April 25th, 26th, 27th. And our mission is to do this annually, for sure.
Oh, I'm so excited for it. It really is such a beautiful blend of all of these different practitioners and modalities. And you and Michelle have done a great job of creating this flow between them all. And I'm just reminded of one of the first events like this I ever went to that I shared with you before. And I think it was over 10 years ago. I think it was before I met my husband or right around those beginning times. And it was the first taste I had to experience Kundalini yoga. And there was one that was on like tantrums. And really what it came down to was being able to fully experience your emotions and express them. And also connecting with a mala. Those were the three that really stood out for me. And it was this space where I got to try on all of these different things. And then through that experience was like, oh, I really like this. And now looking back at that with that like tantrum one that like felt so good. It was like a high I had at the end of doing that. And now that's such a core piece of the work I do with embodiment, to be able to fully feel your emotions. And so it's a beautiful opportunity to taste these things, see what really resonates with you, and then be able to explore that even more, because as you continue with your curiosity, continue with your trust in yourself, like it really can open up a whole new world. And I'll be presenting on sacred sensuality, which is exciting. And really how to use your pleasure, your sexual energy as nourishment. And we'll be able to do it in a very embodied way. I'll be bringing everyone into a practice. And that's what I like about this style of what you're doing as well, is we have the opportunity to put it into practice and not just necessarily talk about the things, but to actually experience the things. So almost sold out. We will make sure we have the links for that as well. And I'm curious, because you're a co-creator, are you also presenting?
Yes, I am presenting together with Elitza, our breathwork facilitator. We do a biweekly gathering of sisterhood called the Queenhood, and we mix in Reiki with breathwork. And what I'm going to be providing is a holy fire experience. So we're going to be channeling in the Reiki energy. Then you're going to be shifting into the breath work, and it's just absolute magic. And that's
Powerful.
oh yeah. And it's our first night. So that's Friday night, which I'm really excited for.
So exciting. That's going to be incredible. And then Queendom as well. So that's what you're doing within that space, is the breath work with the Reiki too. Oh, fun.
In the Queenhood. Yeah, we call it the Sacred Union of Queenhood. So what that is really considering the balance of the masculine and feminine as you walk forward in your queen, navigating the different stages of womanhood. And so when you're young, you're like, you're drawing in the mate, and you're got the great big luscious hair, and the story of the maiden is so fun. And then you start to shift into motherhood, and then your purpose is nourishing, and your expression of self is being in this place of raising these beings into life and being there for them. And then when they start to become self-sufficient, you start to enter into different expressions of perimenopause and menopause. What is it? Where is your balance? Well, often what happens is women go into boss mode. They start to go into this forward drive, like their worth is in their career. But what was expressed over and over again with my clientele and Elitza's clientele, and this is how we birthed this, was this awareness that the feminine side was starting to get lost as women were in boss mode. They were in their masculine. And so being reminded to create that balance of the feminine and masculine within, which is essential, create a divine union within through multiple practices of mindfulness and Reiki and breath work and all sorts of beauty that we'll put a link on, and we can guide that way, to create this expression of sisterhood and support. Because not only are we all navigating that and trying to figure out where our feet are landing and where our worth is, we're also almost like lost in touch with our sisterhood as well. And so creating that really supportive place for these women to help each other rise and share wisdoms and rise together, it has been a beautiful treat. We've been doing, it's a 3-part series, and we're in the middle of our 3rd round, and it's been absolutely lovely. So we get to express that at the summit as well. So Elitza and I will be showing a version of what that is at the summit.
Oh, that sounds incredible too. And I've seen some of the posts talking about it, and I love the vibe, and that's so much of the work I do. So it's like, okay, like I already do a lot of practices like that, but now in this conversation, and that's what's so valuable about spaces like this and spaces like Soul Summit, hearing you talk about it, I'm like, ooh, okay, that is this different flavor that could be really fun to try on. So we will leave all of the links for that. Do you have any last messages before we sign off, just for those that are kind of feeling the spark from conversations like this? Perhaps they are having a bit of a remembering of like, oh, maybe these intuitive nudges are meaning something. Maybe I'm curious to Reiki and energy healing. Do you have any last messages for them?
I believe that we all have the ability we all have our own unique gifts, and we all have the ability to express them outwards, but it's tricky to feel like you can stand in your power. And so my suggestion, as you're beginning to navigate in believing in yourself, is just follow those little nudges. Like when I go to the grocery store, I feel, oh, I should grab the milk. And then I'll have an argument with myself saying, no, you don't need milk. And I'm like, oh, should I grab the milk? Don't listen, go home. There's no milk in the fridge. Those little nudges start to begin to become aware that those are more than just your imagination. I believe that they are inner calling, our ability to reach information beyond what our thought processes of the day, of the crazy day and all the stuff that we're doing. And I believe that we're all here to shine our light. So moving forward, when you watch this or hear this podcast, know that there is something that you have to offer the world. And we're so excited for when you start to step into it.
Beautiful. Everyone truly does have that gift inside. It just takes trusting those nudges, that curiosity, and just seeing where it takes you. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. We'll make sure all of those links of Soul Summit and I keep wanting to call the Queendom, but it's Queenhood. Queenhood, and where people can find you. And thank you for those who have listened and followed along. We appreciate your presence here with us and just being a part of this journey. If you are loving these episodes, I would so appreciate if you could go ahead and leave a review or subscribe to help more people be able to access this information. Until next time. Thank you for joining us inside the Unapologetic with Janine McKinnon podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you feel called, I would so appreciate it if you left us a review to help us reach more women and couples so they can experience deeper connection and more expansive pleasure inside and outside the bedroom too. Until next time, embrace your desire and experience your magic.